Hello, I'm Dr. LeKyndra Smith, the Health Safety Director of Project Transition Incorporated under the leadership of Dr. Joaquin Wallace. Welcome back to our interview series where we interview a wide range of individuals that participated in the athletic arena and have now transitioned into different areas of their lives. Today, we have with us Dr. Joe Griffin from Clarksdale, Mississippi. He is former high-performing athlete, honorable mention All-American. He's an educator. He's an author. He is the founder and owner of Joe Griffin Consulting, LLC. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely a pleasure.
If you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, sure thing. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. First off, my hometown is Clarksdale, Mississippi, the home of the blues. Poverty, gang wars, racial tension, and violence are all at a premium, but I use that as motivation for me to use sports as well as academics to try to pave a way out so that I could one day come back and help, but also be able to go and come as I need to and able to serve and help the world. I was able to use basketball as a tool to get an AA in English as well as a BA in English from Coahoma Community College, as well as Belhaven College, which is now Belhaven University in Jackson, Mississippi. I was able to be a Mississippi JUCO All-Star player while also being an honor graduate at Coahoma. And then at Belhaven University, was also be able to be an honor graduate as well as an NAI honorable mention All-American, helping pioneer the team to his first national tournament appearance in over 29 years. So definitely proud of that. And that helped me to put myself in a position to go back to my hometown and start teaching and coaching. We're able to help win one of the first championships in school history at our Coahoma County High School, where I was a young teacher and coach, and they've gone on to win 6, 7, 8 championships since then. So again, very proud of the path that I paved, continued from that point, got into leadership on the academic side, because I always taught English anyway. Sports was just my outlet, wrote books as well. And from that point, I got into leadership and started turning around schools all around Mississippi. And I've since relocated to Los Angeles, California, have served in a few schools here. And now I'm in my own business, Joe Griffin Global Consulting, LLC, where I help principals and educational leaders create positive environments so that they can improve practices and performance through my award-winning DIP approach methodology.
That is awesome. Thank you for that. So question, I believe reading your bio, you're actually a published author of poetry. Considering your background and considering the area that you grew up in, which is there's a heavy focus on athletics, not so much writing, although if I'm not mistaken, the state of Mississippi does have a very astute history in writing when you start thinking about the Mississippi writers. What was your biggest influence from a writing perspective, and how did you channel that, and how did you use some of the lessons in athletics to channel your energy into becoming a published author?
It's a great question. One of the things that I learned in being both a student and an athlete was that you got to continue to work hard. You got to push through everything. You got to persevere. And with that, I learned that writing became therapy for me. It became an outlet. It allowed me to release emotions that I otherwise not able to release, especially as a black male athlete coming from the Mississippi Delta, where that sometimes is frowned upon and that kind of thing. So I just used it as an outlet, first through the poetry, as you mentioned, and then just continued to graduate. Eventually, I published an educational manual as well, DIP approach for student and adult success, which is an SEL curriculum for life, and then the DIP approach for educators, which is discipline culture plus instructional practice equals performance. And then the third pillar of that is the arts as therapy.
Nice, thank you. So question, you're a high-performing athlete, you're graduating from a high school in the Mississippi Delta, and the next step is college. What factors determine your choice and selection of college?
The factors that determined my initial choice was that I had to take the opportunity that was available to me. I had a scholarship that I knew for sure at Coahoma, or I could have walked on at several different places. In the Mississippi Delta, especially back in this time in the 90s, and even now, the exposure just is not where it could be. Now with the social media aspect and phones and cameras and things of that nature, we have at least an opportunity to put more out there, but there wasn't a lot of exposure at that particular time.
Understood. So, as you matriculated into your collegiate as a basketball player, what were memorable obstacles that you faced as an athlete?
Great question. Well, naturally, the first obstacle that I faced was my height. Being a 5'7" point guard, you always have to defeat the odds of proving yourself to play on these particular levels. So that was the number one obstacle. But also, when you're on a team or in an organization, there are always individuals or people that they may or may not have the same work ethic as you. And sometimes that can be an obstacle if you're a high performer, if you believe in the ability to produce through what you output daily, through practice, through repetition, through preparation and things of that nature.
Interesting. So, considering your height that you mentioned as an obstacle, what tools did you develop to overcome said obstacle?
That's a great question, because I really didn't know it was an obstacle for a long time. I always operated as if I was 6'10", and I didn't truly understand what I was doing, and probably until my junior or senior year in college, after going on to next and higher levels, and just understanding the amount of work and preparation that goes into being not only an athlete, but a good student, a good person, and continue to try to evolve and grow.
Clearly, you have to have a certain level of confidence to go out on a basketball court at 5'7" and play like you're 6'10". So we have that challenge, right? But clearly there are just some functional challenges that comes with that, right? And so there's a mental health component of playing, of lack of exposure, of not playing at the level that you think you should play, or not receiving those scholarships that you feel like you should have been able to receive. What mental health challenges did you face as an athlete?
Mental health is always a concern, because mental wellness fluctuates. We go in, we come out of different phases. That's why sometimes you might have someone snap and change off and do something that they ordinarily wouldn't have done, because mental health and mental wellness can fluctuate from individual to individual. So being a high performing athlete, as you mentioned, you have to have a level of confidence that allows you to be resilient, to come back time and time again. Whether you have failed or whether you've done well, you have to be prepared to just bounce back time after time after time. And it's funny that you asked that, because one of the, and I may be jumping the gun here, but one of the results of some of that resiliency and confidence and being able to push past pain and being able to persist with purpose actually came out in the SEL curriculum for life, in which there's 33 principles that I talk about. The D, dream with desire. And there are 9 principles that begin with believing in yourself, going on to daring yourself to be great, which is one of the things that we're going to do in each pillar. But then you have to initiate and invest in yourself, meaning that you're making time for those things that you love. If that's your dream, you have to dedicate yourself and be committed to that process. Seek out an opportunity to, or opportunities to learn from those who have done those things before. That first P, which is my personal favorite, push past pain. And there are actually 8 principles under it as well. And one of those principles, and I kind of talk about a couple, and one of those was, being able to understand that roadblocks can't stop you, understanding that you have to face your fears, learning from your mistakes. Defeat doesn't mean that you're defeated. Recognizing trauma, being able to deal with those things that have spiritually, physically, or emotionally damaged you. Being able to recognize that is one of the key principles under pushing past pain. And then the last P, persistent with purpose, knowing that positivity rules. You can always accomplish more having a positive attitude versus looking at things on the negative side of it. And there are 8 principles on this. So there's a 33 principle model under that DIP approach for student and adult success that can help anyone keep that confidence, be resilient, and self-actualize. And once you self-actualize, now you put yourself in a position where you can truly serve and truly be of benefit to others.
Oh, that's awesome. So what role did your mental health play in your success as an athlete?
Again, just overcoming what naysayers say. Your opinion of me can never be my reality. And then I couple that with understanding that as you get wiser, your vision often gets wider. When I was preparing to become a college athlete, Ole Miss was a great team at that particular time, were Elite Eight participants, and they were right up the road from Clarksdale, Mississippi. So during my junior year, I got an opportunity to go to the basketball camp, and during those camps, you are able to mingle with some of the current players. They coach you, they mentor you. You go back to the rooms, y'all may play cards, do those type of things. At least back in the day, that's the way it happened. And one of those people on that team was Jozon Darby. And I remember him, mentioning to me that I'd never get an opportunity to play college basketball. And I used that as motivation instead of allowing it to hurt my mental health. I used it as motivation to push me forward and to complete one of my dreams in playing college basketball. And my first son's name is Jozon Griffin, as a constant reminder that you can do whatever you desire to do. Took his name. And he ended up coming to see me play in some college basketball games at Belhaven University as well.
So I've seen you play basketball in person. And the one thing that stood out for me was how fast you were on the court with a basketball. So there's a 3-person race. There's you, there's Muskie Bowles, there's Nate Robinson. Who wins that race from baseline to baseline? Who wins that race?
I've got to say myself. I don't believe that I would lose, especially if we were in our prime conditions. Of course, at this age, I may have to rethink that just a little bit, but even in my mind, I still would believe that I would be able to accomplish that feat.
Nice. So what was the biggest lesson that sports taught you?
Biggest lesson that sports taught me? Wow, there are so many lessons that sports taught me. I don't know if I can compress or condense it down to just one thing, but I guess the biggest component that sports taught me was teamwork. Teamwork really does allow a dream to work. It really does put you in a position to maximize your talents, because if you get better, so does the team. As each individual continues to evolve, so does the team. And that's the team concept. It's the same concept that we use in every avenue of life. It's the same concept that I use as instructional leader to turn around over 5 schools all throughout the state of Mississippi, one of the poorest states in the nation. It's one of the same principles that I've used to cultivate my company into a company where we've been able to, in just 6 months, score a couple of contracts that we're going to be kicking in to help other educational leaders do what they need to do and build the teams necessary to improve their educational statistic at school and improve their culture to allow everyone to flourish every single day. So teamwork is definitely a concept that cannot be downplayed. If you've ever been on a team, whether it's a winning or a losing team, because again, you have to understand that positivity rules. You always look at the positive aspects of everything. You can really grow yourself through the lens of teamwork.
Awesome. Speaking of teamwork, from my understanding, you had an opportunity to play basketball overseas, and that was cut short or derailed by an injury. Do you mind expounding on that?
That's great homework. The opportunity to play overseas, it was cut short. There were 2 things. Number one, the World Trade Center bombing definitely curtailed, because in 2001, when the towers went down, it stopped all of the overseas travel for that year. And a lot of American athletes, not just in my area, but American athletes didn't get the chance to go overseas during this particular season. And then right after that, I ended up having an injury in a basketball game in my hometown that tore ligaments and that kind of thing in my knees, and started a rehabilitation process from there and started teaching and coaching. We won a couple of championships after a few years and got settled into becoming an educator and a leader from that perspective.
What were the coping mechanisms that you used to help you get over the hump to deal with said injury?
Ooh, that's a great question. The coping mechanisms that I used to deal with the injury, first off, I did go to physical therapy for a while, and that helped me physically cope with it. Also, I kept going. I didn't stop. Again, even then, and I did not know that my philosophy would pan out this way. You have to push past pain. You can't allow roadblocks to stop you. I could have easily become derailed, gotten sad, and just gave up. But instead, I turned to another career. I turned to another opportunity, and I still got an opportunity to hang around the game for as long as I wanted by becoming an assistant coach and eventually a head coach before becoming assistant principal, then principal, and so forth.
Awesome. So from what I'm hearing from you, pain doesn't sound like it's just physical. So do you mind elaborating on specifically what pain means in your framework?
Pushing past pain. Again, that's the first P in the DIPPR approach. That's DIPP. Pushing past pain allows you to understand that you are the only roadblock. When you realize that as a man thinketh, so is he, and that what I put into me is actually what comes out, and that I can erase negative inputs by placing positive inputs into my mind and into my life and into my action, you become a different person. As I mentioned earlier, the vision gets wider as you get wiser. And this is a constant mission. So pushing past pain, it can be mental. We're going to always deal with deaths. We're going to deal with disloyalty. We're going to deal with hurt. We're going to deal with adversity. We're going to deal with all types of pain. If you live and breathe and you're human, you're going to have pain. But spiritual pain, sometimes we get in a place of defeat where we feel like our life isn't going where it needs to go, or that we're spiraling out of control, or that we're making bad decisions. Again, you got to realize that, okay, that happened, but we can change that. That could be changed. It's my mind frame. It's what I put into me. It's how I think about those mistakes and what I do to overcome them that allows me to push past the pain. So yeah, pain comes in many forms. It may be monetary pains. It may be all type of pain, but pain is going to come in. It's how we deal with those pain, our resiliency, and how we keep moving forward.
Thank you for that. So considering what athletes have access to now in regards to athletic trainers, physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches, cognitive performance specialists, etc., what mental health resources do you wish you had access to while you were playing?
So many mental health resources, as well as training resources and other type of resources that the athletes of today have that we just haven't made it to. Game, technology, science has advanced things so much and has given so much more information to those that are serving athletes. So one of the things would be exposure to mental health. When I was a student athlete, I had no concept of mental health. It was that if you have mental challenges, that means that you're not functioning properly in today's society. And that's just not the case. Mental health is much more, it goes way deeper than you being diagnosed with some type of mental illness.
Thank you for that. Will you explain to us what was your transition like from going from athlete to teacher and coaching athletes?
I felt it was natural. It wasn't a transition that I planned for. My parents were educators, so I had said that I wouldn't become an educator. Although I grew up in a single parent home, my mom was an educator and so was my dad. So seeing them struggle, and although many people in the Mississippi Delta thought that teachers got paid a lot of money, I knew that that wasn't the case. So I thought becoming a teacher, but once I fell into the role, it was fairly natural. I didn't have problems transitioning. I was already members of teams and things of that nature. And I just continued to push forward and use the things that I had learned to help me in that field of education and coaching. Like I said, I helped transform the community through athletics and academics, because I was also teaching English at a very high level. Some of the retesters at that particular time, I had a class of them, and all of mine were able to pass the state test under my tutelage, and we only lost one, and that was due to the streets. Otherwise, if they stuck in there with us, we were able to get them passed.
That's awesome. How has your perspective changed being on both sides of the coin? You were a student, you were an athlete, you were an instructor, you were a coach. How has your perspective changed being on both sides of the coin?
It's given me a well-rounded viewpoint. And I even throw referee in there. I refereed for a couple of years as well. That's just how much I try to stick by the game. But it's given me a well-rounded viewpoint. It's allowed me to be able to go from coast to coast. It's allowed me to go from the South to the West. It allowed me to fit in wherever I go and still stand out at the same time. So I'm thankful for those various perspectives that I had the opportunity to see. So when I go into a school as a consultant, I'm giving them not only a perspective from the principal or the teacher, but also from the student athlete perspective as well. So I'm thankful for that well-rounded approach, and I definitely know that it has helped me.
Awesome. Awesome. So since you've transitioned from student into your career, especially into entrepreneurship, what's been the biggest challenge that you faced?
Biggest challenge that I faced since becoming an entrepreneur is the outreach. Got to constantly reaching out to people, and that's definitely fine. But one of my coaches told me, you've got to take massive action. Emailing or calling 3 or 4 people a day is just not enough. He said you got to do 30, 40, 50, 100 people as an entrepreneur. So you got to take massive action, and understanding that and listening to that, I understand that you got to constantly upgrade your work ethic, which is one of the pillars of the DIP approach, one of the principles within the DIP approach. So I know that he's telling the truth, and I understand that that's a part of evolving and continue to get better. So that's one of the biggest deals with entrepreneurship, is doing the outreach, getting some regular scheduled hours, because you find yourself constantly encompassed by your vision, constantly working to help others and put yourself in a position to be of service. So that's a couple of things.
Awesome. What mentors were major influences on your life?
What mentors were major influences on my life? I've got to start with my parents. My mother, she paid me to read books from the age of about 8 to 13. And I do believe that that's one of the biggest differences in my life. I know I cultivated my love for reading and writing. And that's also during the same time frame that I started writing poems, of which I kept and maintained. My father as well, because that was a bit of relationship there at a point, but going to some healing and going through a lot of talking and things of that nature, that became one of the biggest sources of inspiration as well. I would have to say that the legendary coach Isaiah Peterson played a big part as well. He allowed me to work as a young coach after coming home from college. He allowed me to actually have input. He allowed me to lead practices. He allowed me to use plays that I had actually taken from Belhaven at the time and allowed us to put those in. And he did not have to do that, because you have a lot of coaches who are insecure, a lot of leaders who are insecure with what they bring to the table. So they don't allow the fresh talent or the talent around them to serve. And again, that's one of the same concepts that I use as principal. I put my assistant principals and teachers in positions of empowerment so that they could feel elevated to do whatever they need to do and make our organizations go above and beyond the call.
How big or how important was mentorship in your ability to transition from athlete to educator to entrepreneur?
That's a different set of mentors. And I would have to say that level of mentorship, when you're talking about executive leadership and moving into areas of administration, it is quite different. And being able to have people like Robert Strayback and Dr. George Gilreath be able to sit in my corner and teach me about or expose me to distributed leadership concepts and things of that nature, being able to get under several leaders and superintendents who were also in the trenches and doing the work. So I'm just thankful for all of the mentors, as well as the different conferences and academies that I attended in order to get information and to keep myself moving in the right direction also.
So, Dr. Griffin, for our listeners and our viewers, what nugget would you like to leave them with?
The nugget that I would like to leave everyone with is to believe in your vision, to understand that it's not going to be easy, but if it came into your head, if it conceptualized itself within your brain, it did that for a reason. And that's a message from whatever higher power you hear from. But that means for you to dedicate yourself with a plan of action, because you got to plan for it in order for it to become a reality. So do those things that you desire in your head at all costs.
Thank you for that. So, Dr. Griffin, what advice would you give to young athletes as they begin their journeys?
Understand that the journey is just beginning. Understand that how they operate in the athletic events of their choice will determine how they operate in real life and later in life. The same mentality that they attack their sprints with, the same mentality they go to practice with, the same mentality they deal with their teammates with, that's the same mentality and spirit that they're going to carry into the world as they go into their jobs, their businesses, the military, or whatever field or choice or organization that they choose to join. So I just want to encourage them to understand that the journey is just beginning. Don't stop. Continue to move forward. always be the best and always go and do the things that they need to do.
That is so great. That's also wonderful advice. Well, I am Dr. LeKyndra Smith, Health Sector Director of Project Transition under the direction of Dr. Joaquin Wallace, the founder of Project Transition. We'd like to thank Dr. Joe Griffin for interviewing with us today. Check him out at his website, drjoegriffinspeaks.com. Check out Project Transition at ptransitions.org. And until next time, thank you all.